Every single tournament, at least one of the best teams in the world gets knocked out in the quarterfinals, and everyone acts surprised. But here's the thing. It keeps happening over and over to the most talented squads on the planet, and almost none of it is about football. This video is about the psychology of why great teams bottle it at this exact stage. You've probably heard people blame the manager, blame the formation, blame bad luck. But the real answer sits somewhere else entirely. Inside the players' heads, in the minutes before kickoff, in the split second before a pass that should be automatic. I've broken it down into 3 layers, and the last one is the one almost nobody talks about. Stick around because it reframes everything you think you know about pressure. So let's start with what actually changes at the quarterfinal stage, because this is where it all begins. In the group stage, a team can still feel like a challenger. There's room to breathe, room to make mistakes, room to grow into the tournament. Even the round of 16 carries that same energy. You're still hunting, still proving yourselves. But the quarterfinal is different. It's the threshold of greatness. Win it, and you're in the Final Four. A national hero, immortal in your country's football story. Lose it, and you're a failure. Full stop. That flip from nothing to lose to everything to lose is one of the most destabilizing shifts in sport. And the brutal part is that the anxiety response starts running before a single ball is kicked. The stage itself becomes the threat, and the players haven't even walked out of the tunnel yet. That fear then quietly rewires how a team plays. And this is where it gets really interesting. Under rising pressure, the brain becomes loss-averse. The pain of losing starts to loom much larger than the joy of winning. And so players unconsciously shift from playing to win to playing, not to lose. You see it in the shape. They sit deeper. They protect leads too early. They stop taking the risks that got them this far in the first place. The irony is brutal. The caution that's supposed to protect them is exactly what invites the goal that knocks them out. Teams don't get beaten in quarterfinals so much as they retreat into defeat. They hand the initiative to the other side and then wonder how it all went wrong. Now here's the part I promised you, the actual mechanism of choking, and this is documented, real, studied science. Psychologists explain that pressure raises self-consciousness and anxiety about performing correctly. And this focus on the self prompts players to turn their attention inward on the specific processes of performance. Skills that are normally automatic, a simple pass, a clearance, a penalty, start being consciously monitored. The player tries to exert more explicit control than they would in a normal situation. Think about a footballer who makes that pass 1,000 times in training, but suddenly starts monitoring the angle of his foot, the weight of the touch, things he'd never normally think about. Paradoxically, that attention disrupts the well-learned automatic processes that would normally run without any conscious input at all. Researchers call this explicit monitoring theory, the idea that pressure shifts mental processes from automatic to controlled. And when that happens, the body tightens, hesitates, and breaks. In sport, this is a major concern because athletes fail to meet their own performance expectations in critical situations, exactly when it counts the most. The quarterfinal is where that pressure peaks for the first time in a tournament. It's the first moment the stakes are truly enormous, and the brain responds accordingly. So that's the individual level, but there's a layer on top of all of this that makes it even heavier, and this is the one I want you to sit with. Teams don't walk into a quarterfinal alone. They carry their entire nation's history with them. Decades of hope, and often the ghost of past failures at this very stage. When a country has a story of "we always fall here," that narrative becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Players tense up at the exact moment the pattern threatens to repeat. The anxiety produces the very performance that confirms the belief. And then that belief gets passed down to the next generation of players who carry the same story into the same round and freeze in the same way. It's a feedback loop that can haunt a footballing nation for generations. You've seen it. You know exactly which teams I'm talking about. And look, this is happening right now in this tournament. Several pre-tournament favorites, including a 2-time champion, have already failed to make it past earlier stages, sparking global debate about the changing landscape of international football. The pressure isn't just psychological theory, it's playing out in real time, every single match. If you're watching this tournament and you want to understand what you're actually seeing when a great team suddenly looks lost, drop a comment below. Tell me which team you think is most at risk of bottling it in the quarters and why. And if you've got a mate who keeps blaming tactics every time a big side goes out, send them this video because the answer has never been the tactics. Now here's what separates the teams that survive. And this is the payoff, the thing the whole video has been building toward. The sides that don't choke at this stage almost never have more talent than the ones that do. What they have is a different relationship with the pressure itself. They've learned to reframe the fear as excitement. And that's not just a motivational poster line, it's a real cognitive technique. They stay locked into the next action, the next pass, the next second, instead of the enormity of the outcome. And crucially, they trust their instincts rather than trying to control them. They keep executing while the mind is screaming to freeze. The desire to perform well in high-stakes situations is what creates the pressure in the first place. But those same pressure-packed situations are where suboptimal execution is most visible. The teams that survive have found a way to let the pressure exist without letting it take the wheel. That's the real dividing line in a quarterfinal. Not who is more gifted, not who has the better manager or the better system. It's who can stay themselves when the moment gets heavy enough to crush them. In every single tournament, at least one of the best teams in the world finds out, too late, that they couldn't. If this got you thinking, there's a video right here on Mexico's 40-year World Cup curse, an entire nation that choked at the exact same knockout stage for 4 straight decades, and the psychology of how they finally broke it. Watch that next. And if you're not subscribed yet, now's a good time. This channel goes deep on the psychology behind the game, and there's a lot more coming.